don't hide from the problem. It doesn't go away. Whether it's heartache, whether it's a death in the family, whether it's physical or sexual abuse, whether it's a relationship that ended badly, whether it's just your personal inadequacies, don't hide behind anything else.
So welcome to our next episode with Life Rocket University. It's titled The Rock Bottom. And today joining me, Roman and Josh. Very grateful, boys, to have you as part of my life. And if there is one person that, I admire for the success and how he turned the life around it's Roman. So Roman, I know your story, and now you're successful, you have a team, you got engaged, life is going really well, and you're making good money, you have a good place to live in. And really, I wanted to kind of ask you, obviously I know it wasn't always like that, and I really admire for what you've accomplished in just such a short time frame, especially, right? And how you turn your life around. How did you do that? What was your mindset in the beginning when you were not doing well? And what is the mindset now? What are the differences in the habits, the way you're thinking, the way you set goals and all of that? Because really, this is designed for people that are not doing well and they want to improve their life. So, I thought that you'd be a great example because you've done it, you've been through it, right? And I think that a lot of people could get some help from your experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, for those of you that don't know, my story, it's a little, messy from the beginning, but just a quick synopsis. I moved here from the Ukraine when I was about 10 years old. I adjusted to life in Canada. Always felt like I struggled to fit in. Obviously, that led to some self-esteem issues and confidence issues, which led me to alcohol use and then drug use at an early age. I went through all that phase of my life, when I was 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. I was in a really bad place. Luckily, when I was 19 years old, I ended up going to a treatment facility, aka a rehab facility, and turned my life around, which I took recovery and my rehab really, really seriously. And then I got into construction. I worked my way. I was, working my way up to construction management. And then I changed my careers because of a back injury, to go into business and finance, something that I was completely, new and afraid of. And persevering. I had a lot of struggles in the beginning. Then there was COVID in the peak of my business, which, obviously was a huge
Yeah.
let down. But then it was a massive bounce back as well because everything went on Zoom like we are today. So, and
So now
now,
tell me, get into like some of the, as I said, like what I really wanted to get into. What were you telling yourself when you were not doing well, and when life kind of sucked? And like, what was if you could go back in that time when you were kind of not feeling you fit in? What were the things that were running through your head?
well, I because I think of me coming to Canada and having to make new friends, especially as a child, that puts you in a place where you're forced to, chameleonize and get accustomed to your new environment and try to fit in, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I did that once when I was, whatever, 8, 9, 10 years old when I came to Canada. Then I struggled to make a lot of friends. Then eventually, by about grade 6, grade 7, I finally got, into the cool kids group, and I started being friends with all the popular kids in school. And then we went to high school, right? So we didn't have middle
Mm-hmm.
school where I grew up. It just went from elementary to high school. And then in high school, my first year in high school, all the popular kids that were friends with me, I basically, long story short, I tried to sleep with one of their girlfriends, and they kind of like rejected me, and they basically turned all the other kids against me. So all my friends were turned against me. So this was when I was 13, 14 years old. So a couple of years later, after me finally finding a clique to fit into it, I was rejected again. And then I was forced to go find a new group of friends to become friends with, right?
Hmm.
for that whole year. So imagine your first year in high school, after the first month, you now have zero friends and you're trying to, fit in. I was suspended for because they found me with some marijuana in grade 8. So I was suspended from school. There was a lot of stuff happening at the time. And then, I persevered. I made a whole new different group of friends, which was very difficult for me. And then by the end of that year, I got taken back by the cool kids again. So I was basically, what I'm
Hmm.
trying to say is that multiple times throughout my life, I was forced in a position where I had to start from zero with zero social status and making new friends and relationships. That happened again when I went to rehab. That happened again when I went to business. So because it's such a common trait, especially from an early age of my life, I constantly, I subliminally developed this habit of making new friends and making new connections. So what I was telling myself, I mean, whenever those things happened, is I think when you're a kid, you don't really have a lot of self-talk. I think it's more or less more action than self-talk.
Hmm.
But eventually, as I became older and the voice in my head became louder and louder, and I had more variations of colors, but they were less bright. Right? I think kids have less colors, but they're more bright. I think when you adults have a lot more colors, but they're less bright. And once that happened, once that transition happened, I think deep down inside, I said, "Hey, I did it once. I can do it again." Over and over again, kind of. So for me, obviously, grade 8, rock bottom was not having friends, and then rebuilding that
Right.
again.
So how
Um,
did that make you feel, by the way, like you were being rejected and not having friends? Because I mean, that's a big, I think especially when we're in that age, we want to belong, right? To have friends and all of it. So what was the most difficult thing about it?
the most difficult thing about it was probably,
And how did you handle it? Like, how did you break through, right? So what was the mindset again? And that's what we're looking for today, right? Like to really know the difference, what makes you successful and what makes you a victim, right? Because it could be so easy to be like, oh, something wrong with me or whatever, right? Like become a victim through all of this and kind of give up on having friends. And you did the opposite, which I think is very great.
yeah, I did do the opposite, but at the same time, there was so much of this looking over my shoulder and seeing people laughing and going for events together and having fun and a group of friends. And obviously, lunchtime, that was really difficult to see that I didn't have anybody to sit with. So I'd always leave at lunchtime to go somewhere else. Um,
Mm.
but I mean, this is definitely where my addiction began. But the way I cope with it a lot of the times was with video games, right? Or
So it was like an escape. So you're looking for an escape,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because obviously it was like maybe what I like the way to describe it is obviously it's a painful experience that costs pain in your life, right? Not having the good relationship and the friends. So you kind of escape from into the virtual reality and play the games where you feel, I guess, more special or whatever, right?
yeah. It starts with, and I think that's especially with the culture today. It's the video games are even more popularized and they're easier. All the games that I was playing on like consoles back when I was 10 to 11,
Yep.
12 years old are now you can get them on your phone or something like that, right? So you don't even need a console. You can play it
Yep.
anytime, anywhere. You feel uncomfortable, you go to the bathroom and lock yourself in a stall and you can play a game for 3 hours. Um, but that was definitely the birth of my addiction and where it all began is because, and especially at home when your parents are fighting, that could be an escape. You go in
Yep.
your room, you play video games, you plug your headphones in. Same thing at school. So it started with that. It progressed to cigarettes and alcohol. Then it progressed to marijuana. Then it progressed to harder drugs and harder drugs and harder drugs. Right. So that was kind of like I think a lot of people's coping mechanism. I think it's important though to learn how to deal with all those issues and problems within. And realize that every challenge that you overcome actually makes you a stronger person. And instead of going and building a video game character, building yourself as a character with those stronger attributes. But it's very difficult to convey that message to, I think, our youth and people in high school as well. And all the amounts of speeches that we do and popularized, by media and stuff like that. It's
Hmm.
great, and people would travel from high school to high school, but it's still sometimes very difficult to get through to those students and people that have a long-standing impact on their psyche and their mental development. Because at the end of the day, if I was to change anything, it would probably go back and not play as much video games and not
Hmm.
drink as much and not do those things and learn how to cope with those things in our life the natural way, because it starts off with something like your girlfriend breaks up with you in high school, which is a very minuscule problem in the grand scheme of things. But then you start dealing with that by playing video games and leaving your brain. And then next thing it can be something like your grandfather dies, and then you're using heroin to cope with that, right? So
Right.
the
So
same.
what would you, so basically it's like my understanding is that almost, would you say that it was almost that you had so much pain that you were trying to numb yourself, or what would be the like escape? What would you say is the right, how would you describe it for you? What was the thing like when you felt this pain and you felt overwhelmed, you just like, went for alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs, or whatever that was? What was did you feel like there's a void, or you just had the pain that you wanted to numb, or what was that for you?
Yeah, I'd say it was both. I'd say I was depressed, but on the outside, I was always happy. But it was definitely a void. And, I'd never had anything extreme happen to me. Like, I was never physically abused or sexually abused, to an extent that it had like a major impact on me.
Yep.
I didn't go through a gruesome death of any kind. Like some people are traumatized from that. No, it was nothing like that. But, every addict is different. And in my case, I think there
Hmm.
was just a feeling like I never belonged, or feeling of rejection, or feeling like I can't be myself, and not being accepted, which is what caused me to hide behind, um, things that produce dopamine and give me a form of a hit, whether it's video games or cigarettes or alcohol or drugs. Um, you know,
Right.
because like I said, you create a habit of using something else to cope with a problem or an issue.
Right.
Um, and it's just like sticking your head in the sand. The problem doesn't
So
actually.
basically, maybe it would be like your needs were not met through your friends and, having the connection, what was really important for you. So you're looking for other means to kind of fill in the void, right? And to, I guess, distract yourself. Now, if you would be able to kind of go back and, or if just kind of in your mind to, what would be the advice you would give to people that are going through something similar? And obviously it's not, as you said, it's more of an emotional pain. So what would be, what helped you to get out of that rock bottom, and what pushed you out of it to, to get you where you are now?
The biggest thing I'd recommend is just deal with it. Don't don't hide from the problem. It doesn't go away. Whether it's heartache, whether it's a death in the family, whether it's physical or sexual abuse, whether it's a relationship that ended badly, whether it's just your personal inadequacies. Don't hide behind anything else. Don't. I wouldn't recommend using an external resource to help cope with those things. I think that learning how to cope with those things naturally, just the same way as the habits are developed when you're rejected by your girlfriend and you start playing video games, and your grandfather dies, you start using heroin. I'm just using myself as an example. Same way you create those habits, you can create positive habits. Like
Yep.
you break up with your girlfriend and you go to the gym, you go to new networking events, you create new friendships, you create new relationships, you connect with people more, you overshare, you actually share your feelings, you understand it's okay to cry and feel these feelings and emotions. That will eventually lead to you being able to conquer bigger and better challenges, and being able to cope with it, right? The only reason
Yep.
why there's some successful people in this world and then some people who aren't is because the successful people are able to solve problems that pay them more money and not be completely destroyed by the emotional response that they may have. For example, the stage I'm at with business now, and it's nowhere near the stage that I want to be or I could be eventually. But let's say now, if I didn't learn how to deal with those small problems, like maybe having a debate or argument with my wife, or having an uncomfortable conversation with my friends, and then coping with it and straight up addressing it head on, versus hiding from it, I wouldn't be able to deal with massive problems in my life today that maybe involve business or big issues that I have to stand up for somebody or something like that. Because the person
Hmm.
who gets used to hiding their head in the sand is going to realize that when those big issues come up, that on the other side of those solutions is a big payday or a lot more success or social stature or respect or whatever it is. Instead of dealing with that, they're going to hide the same way they did when they were 12 years old and their girlfriend broke up with them. So it's the same habit. So if I was to say anything to anybody, it'd be whatever issues you have, write them down on paper. Whatever the biggest things that are clouding your mind and
Hmm.
judgment and causing you to feel stress or anxiety, write out all those problems that you need to solve, and then one by one start tackling it. And if there's nothing you can do about the situation, accept that you're powerless and ask God for courage to help with that situation. If there is something you can do what needs to be done and mentally move on to the next thing. So deal with those problems and cope with those problems head on instead of trying to hide from them, because they won't go away.
Roman,
Right.
when you hit your proverbial rock bottom, was there a trigger point? Was there an aha moment? Was there something that made you think, "Hey, I need to get out of this"?
That's a great question. I never liked getting high and being lazy. I always felt like I was destined for bigger and better things in my life. And I kept going through this vicious cycle. Like, I liked using drugs, don't get me wrong, but the biggest thing, the reason I used them is because I was also um, you know, physically and I suppose emotionally addicted to drugs and the way they made me feel. But I knew that they weren't making me productive, which is why I didn't like doing them for long periods of time, right? So
Hmm.
every time I used to get high, I would talk to my friends about, hey man, we got to stop doing this. We got to stop drinking all the time. We got to go do something. Let's start a business. Let's do this. Let's do that. So it just kind of got to that point where I mean, I got arrested for possession with the purpose of trafficking charges. The charges were dropped, of course, but that happened in the past, and my record was expunged, which was great later. But at the time, it was like this. I was dealing with. I had a crippling cocaine and heroin addiction. My parents basically knew I was using, and they wanted me out of the house. I got into a car accident. I ditched my car. I had these drug dealers looking for me who I owed money to. It was just all around really terrible situation. And then I guess the aha moment was where I slept in my car for weeks and I didn't go home. And then one day I ended up going home. I got really high that night, caused a lot of trouble at home. And I woke up and my mom was actually clipping my toenails and my fingernails because I hadn't done that in so long that I finally came home to sleep in my own bed. And then I puked everywhere. She cleaned up my puke while I was sleeping. She trimmed my fingernails and my toenails, and I woke up later in the afternoon, and my ex-girlfriend's sister's husband was standing there. I used to babysit his kids when I was younger, so he remembered me, and I knew he worked as a part of a program that helped kids get rehabilitated and
Hmm.
get out of gangs and drugs and things like that. And he was basically standing there, and I kind of had this like moment where I'm like, I knew why he was there, but at the same time when I woke up I said, why are you here? And then he's like, dude, you're burning your life to the ground. So we went for a walk. I went outside with my bathrobe. I had a cigarette. He told me I had to straighten up, and then I'm going to detox and then going to rehab. And I said, okay, I'm down to do that. I think later that day I used my last score, and then I detoxed myself for 3 days, and then I went to a detox facility, and yeah, the rest is history.
Crazy. So thanks for sharing all of this. I mean,
Yeah,
this
thanks,
is
Roman.
obviously not easy, and we hope that it's going to help those people that are maybe in a similar situation. And because I know that from where you were to actually get even out of that to have a normal life, like it's probably like 1% of people that can do it, right? And yet here you are, and you're successful doing. You just like, I'm impressed with what you've been through and where you are now. Like, it's
Hmm.
for me, it's very inspiring. So I hope that all the listeners will have the same experience. And so give us now a little bit more positive things. How is the life now for you? I know that you've had a huge moment. You were introducing one of your mentors. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So after overcoming all that, getting into business, um, I put in a lot of work to grow my business in the financial industry. I obviously specialize in financial services, investments, insurances, tax strategies. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of different areas to specialize in. So for the first 2 years, I consistently put in 12 to 14 hours a day of work. I probably took 1 or 2 weekends off the whole year. Then eventually, once I got to a stage, I think you guys remember me talking about this. I got to a stage where I realized that I can't have a business with just one employee, being myself. So I started, recruiting and training and getting associates and building a team of associates that I started personally training from the information I learned, which gave me a lot of time and freedom to actually specialize in different areas of finance, as well as like business and corporate finance, small business tax strategies, things like that. That otherwise I wouldn't have had the time or the luxury to study, because I wouldn't have had to, cater to my clients, existing clients. And My business has grown substantially. Obviously, I'm making over $500,000 a year now. At the age of 26, I was making $500,000 a year. I just turned 27, and we recently had this big business finance convention locally, at which we had Ed Milet speak as our keynote speaker, and I was the last opening speaker before we introduced Ed Milet, which was, I remember, really, really great experience for me, because I was already kind of talking about my personal development and my journey. And then while I'm on stage in front of 1,000 people, I looked over to the Surface Pro that was connected to the Zoom, and I realized Ed Milet had logged into Zoom and he was already watching me speak, which was really, really cool. I honestly, I'd like my opening statement when I went up on stage, I kind of came up with it on the spot. I said, a couple years ago, I was opening up construction gates at 6 a.m. for the employees to start working, and now
So you accomplished all of this in what was the time frame again?
I'm not too sure. I think I got my license in the financial industry. I got my licenses in 2020. So September of 2020, and then by August this year, I was making $500,000. So literally just under 3 years. So
That is so amazing, man. That is like
Absolutely.
very inspiring. So now tell those people that are listening to, what are now your habits? What is, you're very obviously very focused, very driven. Tell me what's the life and what's the mindset right now for you?
Well, that's a fun question. I think it all depends on what kind of life you want to live. Success can mean a lot of things. It doesn't mean money, right? Success to me is the fact that I never fight with my wife. We argue, we debate, we have serious conversations, but there's never gotten to the point where it did with a lot of other, female companions I've had in the past.
Yep.
Screaming and, making up and break up sex and make up sex and all that stuff, right? So
All the drama, yeah.
all the drama, I can't stand the drama. So with her, that's a huge successful part of my life. I also gauge success by the amount of friends that I have. How many people would show up to the hospital if you were sick?
Yeah.
How many people would pick you up from the airport? How many people would you call your best friend?
So what would you say is what's your kind of recipe to, I guess, reach out, have, connect with people and have more friends? And obviously you've done that very successfully.
Constant communication and connection. Right? Constant communication and connection. I over communicate everything. The reason why me and Isabel don't fight is because the moment that I feel like something is off, or that maybe I'm holding something in, or maybe she's holding something in, I always address it right away. What's the point of letting it fester, right?
Yeah.
Even if there is something that we push through that maybe she doesn't want to talk about, or I don't want to talk about, it's not going to disappear. It's going to stack up on my back, and then I'm just going to get a really heavy load on my back that I'm not going to be able to get off. So as soon as, there's something, I said, hey, sweetie, this is how I feel. This is where I think I should be doing for you. This is what I think you should be doing for me. What are your opinions? How have I been as a husband? Give me an evaluation. We do that, consistently, probably once a week. And then I just focus on the 3 main pillars of health, wealth, and relationships, man. So I think my most important one is, of course, relationships, as I mentioned, but even though in the financial industry, wealth is also super important.
Yeah, and obviously your health, you turned that around as well. And now tell me what's your obviously this is not your end, you don't feel like you've made it. What's the future for Roman now in like 3 to 5 years? Where do you see yourself?
So right now I'm on my game plan that by the age of 30, I'm going to be making $5 million a year. I'm going to have a business with over 1,000 licensed agents. That's when me and Isabel are probably going to start settling down, having kids. Right now we're in the process of, we're actually getting married. So she's not my wife yet. She's my fiance. We're getting married in a couple months, in the summertime. And so after we get married, obviously we want to also continue traveling the world. Like for reference, right now, I travel once or twice a month. It's incredible. Just came back from Mexico. We're going to Mexico again with a team. We're going to New York for New Year's, hopefully. We're going to Hawaii in February. Like all these different events, like I get to experience and travel the world. So me and Isabel definitely want to hit up, a lot of the continents and countries in the world
Nice.
before we have children, so we can still do that at an early age.
Yep.
And then by the time I have in my 30s, I want to be making $5 million a year. Have my own place, have another home. Hopefully you guys can sell it to me in the
And we
Kelowna
will.
region. In the
And we'll
Kelowna,
I'll live in your basement suite.
you can live in it when I'm not even there, so you can live in it all year round except in the summer.
And Roman, I know that you really successfully obviously did in your business, but I just wanted to also touch if you can give us a details what your team looks like, and because I think that's a very important part, right? You're not just successful in what you did, but you also were very successful in as a leader and also recruiting and all of that. So how many people do you have on the team now?
So that's an interesting number. So there's different variations of that number. There's how many people we have total, which is probably close to 100.
Mm-hmm.
There's people who are active, which means that they're actively studying, booking meetings, learning, which is probably about 40, 50. And there's the amount of licensed agents that I have, which is about 20. So, I mean, that's kind of the three variations right now. So we're obviously growing consistently. My goal is to have 1,000 licensed agents. We're at 20, so we have a long way to go still. But I think that you have to remember when you're in an industry or when you're in a business where you're independent, and same with you guys. I think with real estates, there's a lot of realtor companies are now allowing you to recruit realtors and train them yourself to avoid having like HR pay for training and sales training and stuff. So I think EXP Realty is one of those companies, and I don't know, honestly, I have no idea. I just saw a video 20 minutes ago or something like that. But you have to remember you're leading a volunteer army.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get frustrated with people not showing up or not doing what they said they were going to do, and letting that get the better of you. Because at the end of the day, like I just said, you're leading a volunteer army. So this person doesn't have to do anything. So you really have to cater to the fact that you're there to train and lead those who want to be trained and led.
Mm-hmm.
You're here to help people who want to be helped, right? If you have, I don't know, if you're a doctor and you have a patient who needs an injection of a certain medicine, but every time you come close to him with a needle or any kind of methods of taking that medicine, if he runs away or gets afraid or slaps the needle out of your hand, what are you supposed to do? There's only so much you can do until, I mean, sure, you can tie him down and force it onto them, which I'm sure they're going to press charges after that. So that's kind of how I always see myself, is that when I aim to coach people, when I start guiding and coaching people, actually, this is one of our companies as well. So one of our teams, Elevate Leaders in the States. So we expand down there as well. But when you start coaching people and then they give me pushback, or when they're maybe not receptive to the information I'm saying, or they say,
Yep.
yeah, but I'm going to do this. I don't force it. I just say, okay, man, all right, I'm here to guide you any way I can. Here's what I would do. And then I just go and I look for people who are easier to coach and more coachable, because I want to spend my time coaching the people who are actually going to take my advice rather than the people the yeah buts, right?
Right.
Are difficult. So volunteer army, right? Deal with those who want to be led. And I promise you, there's tons of people out there who want to get into the financial industry, who want to get into the real estate industry, who want to be millionaires. I'm sure everybody wants to be a millionaire. So it's just about finding the right people. I always say that you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. You can't say the right thing to the wrong person.
Yeah. And Roman, we've done a really good course together. Just wanted to, I think that was also when your team really, like, you're a very good implementer, obviously. And that's when your team really took off as well. And that's actually how we created all the courses and everything that we're doing now, right? So by creating a mastermind, and we have, I guess I asked about 10 people, 5 showed up, and here we are, 3 people out of the 10 that actually wanted to do something. And we've learned so much, and we've learned that having someone to be accountable and focus on and share the goals is a huge part of the growth, right? And so what was the biggest benefit for you to having a group of like a mastermind group?
It's invaluable accountability, right? Like I feel like if you really want to be if you're starting from zero and you have zero momentum and you want to start building that, like if you're listening to this and maybe you're broke or you're in a bad place or you just started a business or you just don't know where to start, the first step, and I've done this multiple times, is to find somebody to be accountable to. Right now, I'm revamping my habits of waking up early, going to the gym, exercising, and all those things. And the first thing I do when I wake up is I text my senior partner, "Hey, I'm up. I'm listening to David Goggins' motivational speech. I'm going to be going to the gym in 20 minutes, blah, 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 blah." Right? Accountability, accountability. So having a mastermind is, first of all, so important because it has a group of like-minded people that are there to help you win. Like the only reason, and having a right mastermind is really important. But if you think about it, the only reason why everybody's there is to get better. So, they're going to help you by you helping them constantly. So I think that accountability with you guys, forcing me to be better, like even having somebody that I became close with, like you guys, and I was able to share the problems I was having at the time, where I told you I couldn't get anybody licensed. I didn't have people retaining in my business. And you guys constantly gave me advice, and you even gave me homework and tasks to do to help me with my business, having zero financial incentive for yourself in it, right? It's not like I was paying you guys for coaching me, but you were just a third perspective, third person opinion that you were giving me from an outsider's perspective. Hey, you should try this and this and this. And then I went, and then I knew that if I was to see you guys again that week, I can't go back without saying, no, I didn't try your advice, or no, I didn't do that. That's why I always made sure that I did what you guys told me to do, so I can report back to you some information, and that helped me with that accountability to actually progress forward. After a while, after a month or two or three, you actually start developing a lot more accountability to yourself, and your momentum is building, which is why you might not need it as much as you did in the beginning, but if otherwise, without accountability, that momentum will drop again.
Yeah. No, thanks. This is really good stuff.
If you're interested in exploring more topics like today's or have suggestions for future discussions, we'd love to hear from you. So please leave a comment below. To find out where you stand in the 3 core areas of your life, health, wealth, and relationships, take our free assessment at liferocketuniversity.com. We will see you next time at the Life Rocket University Studios.